what you have, I think, with Sadiq Khan is very similar to what you have with Nicola Sturgeon and Mark Dreyford. If you give people a certain amount of power, they will use all of it in order to show you what they would be doing if they had more power, if they were controlling the whole country. So you had Sadiq Khan banning so-called junk food adverts on the tube, for example, last year or a year before, to show that he could. And it's the same thing, I think, with the masks, that all three of those people, they just want to show that they care more, I think, than Boris Johnson. They want to show that there's a difference, between the way London is run and Wales is run, Scotland is run, to the way that England is run. And the fact that the differences are really trivial, probably won't make any difference, and are largely performative, doesn't really make any difference to them. The important thing is that they're showing that they do things in another way.
And Christopher, do you think at any point will demonstrating that you care more actually mean that we are having greater freedom? I mean, we know that, or it's widely accepted at least, that Boris Johnson called it right during Christmas over Omicron, whereas Wales and Scotland went much more stronger with restrictions. I mean, is there going to be a shift, do you think, when actually caring more is actually giving people their freedom back?
Well, from what I've seen of the opinion polls in Wales and Scotland, it's not as if people in those nations are rebelling against their leaders. Mark Dreyford seems reasonably popular, arguably the most popular of the UK leaders. So there doesn't seem to be a huge pushback. There's obviously a sense of nationalism in both Wales and Scotland, so people will support anything that seems to be different to what's going on in England. Of course, there are plenty of people who cherish their freedoms out there. And of course, masks on the tube is a pretty minor freedom, you could argue. But as I say, it's been 18 months. At what point do you stop this? And we've seen around Europe where there's been a lot of mask wearing. I mean, France, you still have to wear a mask outdoors. France has about the highest rate of COVID in the world, pretty much, certainly in Europe. So I'm not going to argue about the science. The science suggests at best face masks reducing risk of infection by maybe 10%. But it's so marginal when we're dealing with massive infection rates. I don't think anyone's very bothered about that, probably. And you can tell that because I think once it stops being a legal requirement and just becomes a condition of travel, which is slightly different, I think we'll be back to the days when you had sort of at most 50% of people on the tube wearing face masks. And in the end, it makes a mockery of the rules. When so many people are just flouting the rules, it's better not to have them at all.